Blog Talk Radio.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Julie.
Huh?
Julie.
Huh? Guess what day it is?
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is?
Anybody? Anybody?
Mike.
Huh?
What day is it, Mike?
Huh? Woo-hoo!
Leslie, guess what today is? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Hump day! Woo-hoo!
It's hump day.
Hump day! Woo-hoo!
Yes, it is. It's hump day, and that means it's the Donaldson Wednesday edition of the Files. I'm Tom Donaldson with Coco Konski. I am the chairman of America's PAC. I'm also the project director and research associate of the America's Majority Foundation and the author of 8 books, including The Rise of National Populism and Democratic Socialism, along with co-author 4 books on boxing. And now you got my co-host, Coco Konski.
Hey guys.
Coco.
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Coco. I'm a producer, writer. I dabble in politics, and I also co-host every Tuesday and Wednesdays.
Yes. All right. Before we go into the subjects, I mean, I know last night you had a really great time, so I do want to talk about it.
Oh my God, can you not? Can you not? You want me to talk about my date?
Well, just all you gotta do is say you had a nice time.
We had a good. You know what? We had a really, really good time. We are seeing each other again. He took me to this amazing restaurant, and it was great. We had a really fun time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Oh, I do have to say, today, my daughter, the oldest daughter, who's now doing research somewhere in Mexico, got some really good news. 2 good pieces of news. She's been doing like a freelance project, as she said. I got paid for it. Got a paycheck for it. And then she got news from the University of Nevada at Reno.
Wow.
She is going to be a college professor in Reno, Nevada. Yeah. So she's got a couple of classes that she does. It sounds like she's going to have some time to do some research as well.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. So
I thought you were about to announce that she was. I thought you were about to announce that she's pregnant. I was about to say, congratulations, Tom.
Well, you can still say congratulations, Tom. I have a daughter who's got a job.
Yes, congratulations.
So basically, the daughter and the cat will be sometime in, I guess, at the end of August, because I didn't get the dates and everything it's going to be. Yeah, so I guess that means, because here's the interesting thing at Christmas. Over the years, I mean, we've always gone different places. It's it's like, Catherine always came. Of course, she's been living with us for the past year and a half. But even before that, she would come to our house to be with my wife. I would be going to New York City. Well, I told my wife today, I said, well, that means one of us is going to have to go to Reno and the other to New York. And she said, well, don't you think Catherine's come here? Well, Catherine's got the cat. So, cats travel, and you know how the cat travels. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you get to go to Reno, and who knows, maybe she can hit the jackpot at one of these casinos.
Those are always fun.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have been to Reno, Nevada. I covered there was a gentleman I was co-authoring a book. He's now passed away, Rusty Rubin. And he invites me to Reno to do it was a Showtime event, Showtime fight. And get to, and so he invites me to show up. So I got my press passes, and we got to, get to see Reno, but we got to go to the fight, and it's really fascinating. What was that show? The Cat House.
Oh my God! Yes. Yes.
HBO.
Yes.
HBO used to have the guy who just passed
Yep.
away, Dennis. Yeah. Well, they were the Card Girls.
Oh
The
my
Card
God.
Girls. God. Yeah. The Card Girls were the ladies from the, what's the show called? Cat House?
Yeah, it's called Cat House.
I
I used to watch. Oh my God, I used to watch that show when I was a kid. I don't think it's
Yeah.
appropriate for
Well,
13-year-olds to watch it.
they were the official Card Girls.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
So that's and so that to
Well,
me was
the guy who owned it. Remember, he just died.
Yeah.
He
died.
ran.
In fact, he died before. Yeah. Then he ran for a state legislator and still won, even though he passed away before the election.
Yeah, it's literally.
Yeah. So
I thought that was always
I
amazing.
remember that. But so I thought it was something because that's what I always remember because this was like 2004, and we did a couple of we did a couple of the casinos and just kind of walked around, had a good time, and then at the fight, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, aren't those the ladies from the Cat House? Because
I'm sure your wife really appreciated that comment.
Well, like I say, I was thinking it, not telling her.
Okay, good. But
it was, like I say, it was a fascinating evening, and that's what I remember about Reno. And I've also I've also been to Laughlin, Nevada, which we went for a boxing
I have no
match.
idea where the hell that is.
That is on the other side of the state. It's a long way from nowhere. You literally go about 2 hours, and you can almost see absolutely nothing. And then again, that was another boxing event that we went to. I had the opportunity to interview the late Nick Charles and Steve Fairhood, who's now still working with Showtime. And then,
right.
And of course, in those days, I was getting press passes all over the place, so I didn't have to pay for my ticket. I got right there at ringside, and this was, and it was kind of interesting because there was a couple of fighters who were on the way up and who later became champions. One of them is Paul Manganiello, the gentleman who's now in Showtime, and it was on welterweight. So it was kind of a fascinating, so it was kind of a fascinating evening, fascinating, So I've had some fascinating times covering boxing matches in Las Vegas. So, but yeah. And now, here's the other thing too. For those people in Monterey Bay.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, the shark attacks.
Yeah, watchers off the California coast were lucky they witnessed a local animal encounter that had never been documented. A killer whales from the Pacific Northwest shows up in Monterey Bay.
Well, that's not too unusual because, I go to Malibu on weekends and we whale watch. There's whale watching there. So Monterey, is not that far away from, the Malibu. So it's not surprising really.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we have a lot of whale watching.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the first thing I thought of is, the show Jaws.
Yeah.
It's like, real life Jaws. And then what was the other? People in waters in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. People in the water were unaware sharks were just inches away from them.
Right, and they did an aerial shot, and that's how they found out.
Yeah. So.
That's how they found out because they did an aerial shot, and they see the people in the water and the sharks are right near them, but they have no idea that's happening. It was quite wild. That was pretty wild.
I was just saying. I mean, it's like, the fact that nobody got hurt at this particular episode is interesting to me. But how close? I'm looking at some of these pictures, and it's like they're pretty close to the shore.
Well, and here's the thing. I remember do you remember when I took that trip to San Diego, like almost a year ago? Well, it has been a year. Well, when we were in San Diego, we were swimming like with the dolphins, and even like some whales were around there. Like some like they were doing whale watching. But there were walruses and there were sea lions, and I actually ended up swimming with the sea lions because they come very close to the shore. Because in a certain area in San Diego, Del Mar, which is where I was at, they're known for, like, they have the caves in the ocean. There's these natural habitat caves, and the seals like to hang out around there. And I was swimming with a seal. And I got to tell you, it is the most beautiful and most frightening experience you can ever imagine,
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Here it is.
We haven't discovered. Yeah.
Speaking of sharks in North Carolina,
yes.
They've had 3 this past month. The New York Times 2 days ago had a story on that. Yeah.
That does not shock me, though.
Yeah.
Like, I said, do you know how deep the ocean is? I mean, there's certain, we've only discovered, 3% of the ocean, when there's like there are creatures that we don't even know about that exist down there. We don't know. So, I think it's very, if you're like me and you're kind of adventurous, and I went shark diving in a cage when I was in Mexico. I mean, that's adventurous. Not many people want to do that, but I'm all like, let me go feed the sharks. But you just have to be careful around your surroundings, especially when you're on uncharted waters, pretty much. I think that's something to be careful with, because again, you're in their habitat. Yeah.
Well, that's just like you say. It's interesting because one of the local news, 3 unprovoked shark attacks. Actually, one of them looked pretty serious because it sounds like the swimmer actually had to have her leg amputated.
Yeah, that's never fun. I mean, I have a fear of the ocean. I have a fear of the ocean, and that's like my worst fear, is to like be surrounded by sharks and then die.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, this is the Donaldson Files. Tom Donaldson, Coco Consti. We're going to be talking quite a bit later on today. We're going to be talking about, shortly after this break, the debate, the Democratic debate. There was an interesting article with Elizabeth Warren, and we're also going to, so we're going to kind of put a little bit of politics into all of this. And then later on the show, there's a couple articles on California that I wanted to get Coco's impression of. So, we'll get to that point as well. But right now, this is Tom Donaldson, Coco Conski, and the Donaldson Files. And while we're at it, on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, which we're a part of, we're going to hear about another great show.
If you want to hear another view of the latest developments in Trump's Washington, listen to the Dr. Larry Show. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Larry is a former businessman, entrepreneur, college president, and author who provides background and context for current events and trends in politics, education, foreign policy, and religion from a conservative perspective. Tune in and hear the other side as Dr. Larry talks with Washington insiders exclusively on blogtalkradio.com and the podcast at thebatchelorpadnetwork.com.
No problem.
Yeah. This is Tom Donaldson, Donaldson Files. We are right back. Dr. Larry is going to have as his guest Chris Kettner, who's a well-known commentary on political, social, and recreational topics, and the host of the Specialist Radio Hour, which is a daily program that stars in Stripes Radio. So he's going to basically talk about what he talked about last night, fathers becoming obsolete in today's modern society. Also, before we go into the politics side, we do have a caller from South Carolina, Pam. Pam, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Tom. How you doing?
Real good. Okay.
I was more curious about.
Go ahead.
Hi.
I was more curious about Coco's date last night. That was my question.
All right. You know what? Just for that, I will let you know he's a very nice guy. He is an editor for Major Motion Pictures, and it was really nice. He took me. I have a very fascination with the 1920s, so he took me to a restaurant that has been around since the 20s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Friday, he's taking me for sushi, and we're going to do a haunted tour in downtown Los Angeles because I love everything horror. So I think this one may be a keeper. I think so.
Well, right after you talked about your date, y'all were talking about people who dismember and do all these other things.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yes. Well, you know what? Hopefully that won't
the
be a
blind
part
date
of me.
and the segue.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Murder me. Well, I appreciate the call. My God, I love it.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, let's what's kind of your idea? I mean, what are they talking about? Because you live in Columbia, South Carolina, correct?
Correct.
But you go to Charleston quite a bit. Now, Myrtle Beach is not that.
No, we do the entire eastern seaboard. We're only 2 hours from the beach. I used to take off in the afternoon and be down at Sullivan's at I'd leave here at 3 and be down there at 5:10.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
It's nothing. I mean, that's why I like where I'm at, because 2 hours you're to the mountains and 2 hours you're to the beach. Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach has always been a touristy area.
Oh,
that's not the place to go if you're surfing or playing in the water a whole bunch. Usually it's around Charleston, Beaufort, Hilton Head,
I
those
love
areas.
Hilton Head. So beautiful.
Yeah, don't get a bunch of waves at Hilton Head, but it's pretty to walk, yeah.
Yeah.
But we learned about sharks early on. Yeah. We grew up. We were not allowed in the water.
Oh my God.
Really?
Not unless you knew about sharks and how to read sharks. Yeah. That was the only time we were allowed to take surfboards or what we call boogie boards in the water because we were kids.
Right.
And I've done it in Hawaii. I mean, that's what 5 years ago I was boogie boarding down at Isle of Palms. But you have to learn how to read the water, and that's something that they're not teaching people these days. If you're out there and you see a school of fish jumping, you kind of get towards shore because that's usually going to indicate that a predator is after it. And the eastern seaboard is well known for the sharks and stuff. I mean, they'll roll up on the beach sometimes. Right there.
Oh, wow.
You'll be walking down the beach and they're right there. The little sand sharks and the small bull sharks.
So you're basically saying there's a lot more So this really is newsworthy. It happens all the time. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, I mean, every time I've gone out, I've seen sharks, and you're talking, I'm not a young person, and probably about 40 years worth of going to the beaches,
wow.
on weekends or whatever, high school, and living basically, you live in a car if you live here, and you go there and you go to the mountains. But yeah, we learned how to read the water. Now, if I were to go to California, no, I'm probably not going to get in the water there. I go down to Florida. I'm very familiar with Florida, all the way down to the Keys. Very familiar with the both sides of Florida, But no, I probably wouldn't get in the water in California because I just don't know it that well. However, I did jump in the water and in the big waves, and I did do the big waves in Hawaii. But I was kind of crazy back then.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I appreciate. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Yeah, just stay on the air. We may have you a little bit later on the show. There's a couple of things we may ask you. So, oh yeah.
I'm gonna.
All right. Yeah. Okay, that's Pam.
People are interested in my dating life, Tom. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, let me face it. I mean,
that I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that question whatsoever, but I more than welcome it. So
yeah.
that was
actually,
great.
That was All right. Okay. Now the one thing we're going to start on the political side, and we got the debates. What's it? It's next week, right? So 26th, 27th.
Right.
The Democratic debate where you basically got 10 people on both sides. On both, it's like a 2 nights affair. And I guess the question I would throw to you would be who would have who does this benefit? Who doesn't it benefit? I mean, I got my theory, but I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts were. Which candidates benefit the most?
Well, you know what? I don't think that it's safe to say that, I guess all candidates will benefit, because if they don't have their name out there already, they're going to now. And I think it's a bit insane to have 20 people debate. I mean, I think what they should have done is spread it out for like weeks at a time, where they'll have 2 people there, and then 2 people next week, and then the 2 other candidates the following, and so on and so forth. I think that's something that could be done. But I understand it. I understand that they want to get the best candidate already, and they want to get all the other ones that don't qualify out of the way. I get it. But I think right now, especially in the next few weeks, it's so crucial for anybody who wants to stay in the race. I think it's absolutely crucial.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing to me. This is where it's kind of interesting when you talk about shortening, let's say maybe having less people and spreading them out. Because the one thing to me is when you got 10 people, it's very difficult. When you're only going to be speaking, if you got a couple-hour debate, you're only going to have about 10 minutes. And I'm trying to remember the format, because if I remember, I mean, with the Republicans in 2016, they had quite a few. They had 2 nights. And the way they separated was by, you had what you call the junior, I won't say junior varsity, but they had, the second-tier people on their own day. Because they went by polls. If you were at this poll number, you were on this date. If you're in the high polls, you got to be on with the big boys, and everybody kind of understood that you were with the big boys. And eventually, people kind of shedded them way out. The problem with this format, the format is you didn't always get the same question, and you didn't because there was like 7 or 8 people, even in with the Republican side. And you didn't always get a chance to, respond to the same question. Because they kind of alternated the question, for you over here. So there really wasn't that interchange that you can have. Now, there were some dramatic moments, within that debate, with some of those debates. Anytime you had Trump, there were always dramatic moments. But the thing I always remember is that it was difficult, really, for some ways to, go after somebody when you may be caught with another question that has nothing to do with what the other guy was asked. And I'm seeing this, and again, it's like you got 10 people. So in this debate, they're going to average 10 or 12 minutes total time. I mean, that's what I kind of calculate.
But what confuses me really is how is everybody gets words out in that matter of time?
Yeah.
How are they going to get their point across? It's going to seem almost impossible.
Well, the thing to me, the benefit to me, and the more I thought about it, the more it's okay. If I'm at the bottom, I'm at that 1 to 2%. I mean, you got 2 choices. One, you can just say something totally outrageous, which somebody like Eric Stallworth, I think, is fairly capable of, but I'm not sure that helps him. Or, you're somebody like Gillibrand or Knobloch of Minnesota. They need to make some progress because eventually what ends up happening. Because what ends up happening is donors are going to sit back and say, you know what, you're at 2%. And Warren is moving up. Sanders is still in the races. Mayor Pete's making some moves, and you're down here 2%. Why should I give you money? I mean, they have, and the thing is with these debates is that they're not going to have that opportunity, in my view, to basically go after the top tier candidates and be able to, challenge, make those moves. I mean, in effect, you're going to have to figure out a way to say something that's brilliant that can be repeated over the next 24 hours on talking points. But I don't see them basically able to, make a move. And I also think, we'll go a little bit later with Joe Biden, but I thought this format will benefit Joe Biden only because he's only got to speak for 10 minutes, and all he's got to do is remind people who he is. And,
exactly.
And it reduces the amount of time for any mistakes or gaffes. And also, if you have a format where you may not get the same question, Bernie Sanders is going to have a difficult time because he'll be in that same group as
right.
Biden to challenge. Make a point and go after him when you got about 8 other people. I mean, you may make a sharp attack, and then you got 7 other people following you, and whatever attack you made basically gets ignored. So, I mean, I looked at it,
right.
My original thought was Biden would benefit, and certainly the top-tier candidates themselves would benefit, strictly because it's going to be difficult for somebody at the bottom tier to, make a big move because you're only going to have about 10 minutes.
Right. I mean, and like you said before, I think it's going to be almost impossible to get everybody's point straight across, especially when there's 20 candidates. I think that's going to present us challenges. Do you know who's moderating it?
Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking it's Rachel Maddow, Lester Holt. I'm going to have to look up the other members. Coco is connected a little bit, but she's calling back in. And but we're going to return to write this. This is Tom Donaldson and Coco Konski of the Donaldson Files, and we will return after this mention of another great show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
Join Barry Barnes for Locker Talk on the Bachelor Pad Network as he presents NFL news and evaluates players. Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com.
Yeah, there's Tom Donaldson with the Donaldson Files. Don't forget Locker Talk, 9 a.m. Friday on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. Call in 646-929-0130. And don't forget, you can listen to any of these shows that you miss or you want to hear again on the Bachelor Pad. On the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.com. So you got a lot of opportunities, and also the Donaldson Files. We have a website, DonaldsonTFiles.com, and as you know, yesterday we had we still have those 2 articles up from last night, and also we have a Twitter site at Donaldson Files, which, by the way, today we have a couple of pictures of the 2 co-hosts on the Twitter site, so you actually can know what we actually look like.
I know.
So, okay, back.
I know.
Yeah, and also it's on our So basically, we got a great picture of Coco, both on the Donaldson Files Twitter site, and we also I went ahead and floated it out there under a tweet. So we tweeted out the pictures. So let's just So basically, it's
I'm very
me
camera
actually.
shy, obviously.
Obviously, you are. Obviously, okay. Now back to where we were.
Camera shy. Yes.
Yeah. So
well, I was gonna ask you. Do you know who's moderating it?
Yeah. Well, I know. Let me look that up because I know Lester Holt is. Rachel Maddow. It's like about 4 or 5. And let me just see.
Okay.
moderators here real quick. And
so I'm interested in that.
Yeah. So, but you're right. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I think, quite frankly, is it's kind of a crazy format as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's kind of a crazy format, and basically, you basically are going to have to figure out a way to tell some of these people, you know what, dude, you got 1 or 2%. You still have 1 or 2%. It's time to go home. Okay, they got 5 moderators. 5 moderators.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, you got Savannah Guthrie, Lester Holt, Chuck Todd,
love her.
Rachel Maddow, and Jose Diaz Balart, Balart.
Well, I love Savannah Guthrie. I love her.
Yeah. So those are going to be.
Oh, good.
Yeah. All of your moderators, which will be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, because you're going to have Chuck. Well, because Holt is kind of he's a newscaster. Maddow is.
Yeah.
She's basically she's a pundit with her own show.
Yeah.
You're going to have from Telemundo, Diaz from Telemundo.
And Guthrie. I love Guthrie.
Guthrie is so.
Guthrie. Yeah, she's great.
And then you got, of course, Chuck Todd Meet the Press. So.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's going to be, again, it's going to, it's like I say, you got that format, and I kind of, I look at it from, this is not an easy format to go through. And eventually with some of these people, they're going to, I mean, what is that Williamson? The guy, the lady who's a spiritual lady. I can't remember her name.
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Marianne Williamson.
I mean, there's a part of me that says, Marianne, you got your debate. You're in the game. Thank you very much. But
I've heard good and bad things like with every candidate. I think you should never downplay a candidate, even if there's some like a dark horse. You should not do that because you shouldn't. You should not have any expectations.
That's probably true. I guess maybe when I look at some of these candidates, and I say to myself, I have no idea why they're running and why they think they can win. Some of them I can understand, like Gillibrand's thinking, when she first got in the race, I'm from the state of New York. I've got some name recognition.
Right.
I've got, but then I look at somebody like Eric Stallworth, who, quite frankly, is kind of a, I don't know if he's waiting around for 2024, but I have to be honest with you. I do not take that seriously at all. I don't find him to be all that. He kind of reminds me of what once was said about Chuck Schumer, is never getting his way if there's a TV camera in front of you. If you're between a TV camera and Eric, you better get away because he'll run you over just to get to the camera. That's basically the way I view him. I don't view him as a guy who's serious, whereas, I certainly would look at some of the other candidates and say, well, at least they got something to offer. But that's my, opinion. Now, there are 2 other persons I want to talk about, and then a third fact. Then we're going to get you. I don't know, what you've heard, with Joe Biden, which everybody's calling a gaffe. I'll let you. You could tell me if you think this is a gaffe. But he's,
Are you
Biden
talking
is
the
sitting
curing
there.
cancer thing?
No. Here's the deal. He started talking about his experience, getting along with people, how he can get things done. And then he starts talking about a guy by Senator James Eastland. Now, Senator Eastland, this is like in the 60s and the 70s, and he made kind of a comment, he always called me son, not boy. Now, for those people who know who James Eastland is, this guy was one of the hardcore segregationist bigots. And And there was a lot of questions like, of all of the people to be, say, what a great guy he was, a senator, we got along well, we made, this isn't the guy I would pick. And
right.
And of course, and it's like, it's almost like in some ways years ago, when there was a senator, a Republican, a Republican from Mississippi whose name escapes me now, said some nice things about some segregationists, and basically he was pretty much, out. They pretty much showed him the door. I mean, it was a big firestorm, and I'm wondering, I hate to use the word gap, but I'm thinking of all of the people to bring up, and you make the comment, he didn't use the word boy, he called me son. That's like one of those.
Yeah. I can't. I can't. There's no way. That just made me like.
Yeah.
That's awful.
And this goes back to the point, because that's why I said at the beginning, I said the guy who should benefit the most would have been Joe Biden, but it's going to be interesting next week is how many people bring this up
my
against
goodness.
Biden. It's an interesting aspect because in the same day today, and I'm going to talk about Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump, because I got a chance to listen to the speech last night, because that's what we have to do these things that Trump engaged and announced as official. And I looked at, there was an article, Politico, and they're talking about, the article is, she's going to be the quote-unquote compromise candidate. Somebody who can attract a good portion of the left, but she's not Bernie Sanders. And she's starting to, and they, kind of talk about the way that she's starting to make ends meet. And this is, and this is a point I'm going to make to people from this perspective. And I've said this before, and I've said this to a lot of people on our side. I've had meetings about this, and I said, you better read what she's saying, because she is running like the left-wing version of Trump, economic nationalism. I mean, she's Trumpian on the left, or as I like to say, she's Marie Le Pen without the ugliness. And I find her, when I'm looking at her platform, I was looking at what she's been saying. And it's fascinating because she understands, this is a platform that is a very strong platform that's not going to be so easy to dismiss and go after in the same way that you could go after Bernie Sanders. And it'll be interesting next week, she's on the first. This is the other thing they did in the debate. It's like, she's on one night, Joe Biden's on the other night, along with Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete. So she's actually going to have the whole floor to herself for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it'll be, and so it's going to be interesting because, again, she's not going to have a chance to go after Biden, but who knows? Other people may do that for her.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting, actually.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like looking at her platform because, it's a fascinating platform to a point where even Tucker Carlson said, boy, this got some good ideas. I'm thinking, Tucker, cut the crap. But.
Well, you know how I feel about a good old tough boy.
Yeah, but okay, so this is Tom Donaldson, Coco Konski with the Donaldson Pods on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. And so we're going to listen to another great programming on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you if you're looking for real discussion on sports, politics, religion, and other topics, you need to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern at WCOMFM.org, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/LA-Batchelor, and on Thursdays at the same web address. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can email us with your requests, your comments, your concerns, anything you want at our email address at LABatchelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40 at gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Pad Nation, Instagram, and of course, if you miss any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to thebachelorpadnetwork.com and listen and enjoy the Bachelor Pad.
Yeah, this is the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. We got some really great programming, and if you go to the website, thebachelorpadradionetwork.com, if you go to the website, you can get all of the shows. Just simply, link in, the Donaldson Files, Dr. Larry, the Bachelor Pad, Sandy's Secrets, along with the Locker Talk with Barry Bonds. So, and you can get caught up on past episodes. Or if you just want to listen to the show that you just heard, for example, if you wanted to go listen to last night's program on the Bachelor Pad, this is a good opportunity to say, boy, what did just listen to it again. Because let's face it, our shows are so good that they are worth listening to a second time. Now the other thing too, I wanted to kind of contrast it because I was fascinated by the Trump's performance, and I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to throw this out in a way because take off the I hate Trump hat, I don't like Trump hat, and view this as a pundit, observe as a pundit, and the same way when I do, I kind of read, let's say, with Elizabeth Warren, I do so in an impassioned way. And here's the thing that caught me. Is that he got some very interesting themes that, to me, I kind of view it as a election. When it comes down to is this: what kind of America do you want to see? Socialism versus capitalism. He talked about, he used the example of the FBI, the FISA courts, everything we talked about, the Mueller report. This as an attack on him, but also the attack on the rule of law. He kind of reversed everything that you see the Democrats do. And it was an interesting tactic that he did because, he gives you your facts and statistics. Mostly it was about what kind of America you want to see. An America that views you as deplorable, views you in a totally different light. In other words, it was the mirror image of Elizabeth Warren. If Elizabeth Warren looked in the mirror on what she would give as a speech, staring right back is Donald Trump. And now he did talk about this. He kind of hinted at it last night. He talked about the censorship with some of the social media side. But it's interesting is that I will guarantee you when it all comes down to it, if I'm Facebook, if I'm Twitter, if I'm Google, you're going to find yourself in a situation where, quite frankly, you may end up with two candidates basically saying, break you up. And because I guarantee, break you up. And it's kind of, I find that interesting because, for years and years, many of these, tech, many tech companies, basically supported Democrats. But you're going to have, Elizabeth Warren's already made it clear, I'm breaking you guys up. I'm coming after you guys. You're too powerful. And you're also hearing that the same thing from the conservative side. Glenn Reynolds, Instant Pundit, he just wrote a book, and he's made the exact same case about this. And it's going, so it's a fascination with me that you may end up with two people with, basically asking that question, what kind of America you want to see. But there are going to be a lot of issues where, quite frankly, you may not, see a big differential. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, I think mostly moderates like me, we obviously don't want a socialism country, but we also don't want what Donald Trump is offering. We want equality, gay rights. We want, being pro-choice. Those are what I look for in candidates. And if someone's a little too left for me, I'd rather vote for them than I would Donald Trump, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, you're in the same boat a lot of people in the 2016 was. You put up, you hold your nose and vote for Trump because Hillary Clinton was not necessarily a.
Oh, I
for us,
Hillary.
To me, I'd be honest with you. To me, she was far worse of an alternative to me in so many ways than I would view.
I disagree with you on that.
But, like I said, that's. And right now I have got a cat that's sitting here wanting to be petted, and he's bitten me twice and saying, you're not paying attention to me. You're right, cat. I'm on the radio.
Sounds like my dog.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But going back to your point, going back to your point about, we could have voted for, for me, like I said, I want someone moderate. I don't want someone too far left, but I would take that versus Trump again. I would. Yeah. Well,
the irony that comes into play here is this. This is what people, to me, is what people have to realize. And this is a point I made in my, book, The Rise of National Populism, Democratic Socialism, is that there were aspects. I kind of like, on the Trumpian side of the equation, it's gay rights, for example. For all intents and purposes, Republicans don't talk about the same-sex issue anymore. For the most part, they do not. And one of the reasons is somebody asked Mayor Pete. Somebody asked Trump about Mayor Pete and his marriage. And his answer was, good for him. Good for him. And there is an aspect when you look at the trade issue, and you look at as an example, Trump has been far more aggressive in using the tariff, using the trade as a bludgeon. Now, whether or not it's a bludgeon opening up, but this was this was an issue, let's say, in 2015 that Bernie Sanders was using. So you're in effect seeing a kind of a shift away. I kind of view it this way: is who's the more radical? When you've got bills that have been passed in blue states and all but sanctioned, infanticide are about as close as you're going to get, and you did have a governor on a radio interview saying, he described the process of infanticide and said it is supported. So it's where is who is the true radical in all this? It's an interesting perspective. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring on Pam. Very briefly, because she is, in the past she's told me that she's an independent. She's voted for Democrats and Republicans over the years, and I'm going to kind of get her real quick synopsis on this. Okay, Pam, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Tom.
Okay, here's the question I'm going to ask you. Yeah, the question I'm going to ask you is this: okay, you've been an independent. You're not a registered Democrat.
Correct.
And I know and I guess the question I'm going to ask you, when you look at the parties today, you look at the candidates today, who do you view as closer to the political center?
To the political center?
Yeah.
We're so divided right now. That's a crazy. Yeah. I would probably go with more moderate people. Right now, I don't know. I really don't know a Republican that is not, or a Democrat that's not, because, you know, the Democrat, like you were talking about earlier, the whole field's running. I personally I look at my governors, I look at my business people, I look at somebody who's run something and been successful. Because when you're dealing with government, you are dealing with the swamp, and you're also dealing with those other entities within the government. You know, your cabinets, this and that and the other. So it has to be somebody semi-organized. We were talking about Elizabeth Warren. I think that they're setting her up to be the nominee by doing the debates the way they're doing them. I don't think they should have put Bernie and Biden on the same stage in that night with that big a field. You know, I think the field needs to be smaller before you put those two on the stage together. I kind of like I like the Starbucks guy as far as the Democratic Party, and I know that he's gotten a lot of boos and stuff, but he seems to be more moderate in his thought process and more realistic in what he's saying. But yeah, I don't, you know, as far as trying to find a moderate Republican right now, I mean, Nikki Haley is my queen, you know, and I disagree with some of the things she did as governor, but she has, you know, the abilities, you know. She's got some really good abilities to smooth stuff over. She's negotiating skills, in other words. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Howard Schultz, because here's the interesting thing to me, and I know Coco, by the way, Coco has had to leave us. She wasn't feeling 100% tonight, and so she's basically, you know, like the trooper that she is, she gave it all she got, and she is, but, so I'm going to kind of ask you a few more questions because we're getting near the last 8-9 minutes of the show. Okay, Howard Schultz, you know, one of the points Coco made, she said, I wish he would run as a Democrat and not, you know, consider to run as an independent. And what does that say to you when you have somebody like Schultz basically saying, in effect, I can't run as a Democrat? Because the
Democratic Party has been hijacked. Yeah. But it's also been, it's been hijacked by socialism, but it's also been hijacked by the media. They're picking our candidates for us pretty much, and they have been. And then that's where, you know, you kind of sort of agree with Trump on some of that, because there is a lean. There's a lean toward, and like I said, I believe that they're setting Elizabeth Warren up to be one of the head nominees, if not the nominee, by giving her a different road in the debates, and that's just the way I see it. So yeah, I agree with him running as an independent. It's hard to find a moderate. There was a lady, I believe she was in Ohio. Her husband is like a sheriff. She was talking on the news or something. They were interviewing about something. I was like, my God, if she ran in big, I'd vote for her, because she made so much sense. She was not against gun control. You know, she was, you know, not against a lot of the things that make me lean one way or the other. But I had a Republican guy here that's in our state house now that stood on my front porch steps that told me that, we're not going to mess with gun control and da-da-da-da, and then he voted against reciprocity for the states. And I'm like, what? Son. You know what I mean?
No, I hope you reward him with a no vote the next time around. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, a politician is a politician, though. They'll stand in front of your face, and they're good at that. And I believe Elizabeth Warren is a politician. Yeah. And Bernie.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, are you going to watch the debates next week?
I want to. I'll probably catch it after the fact. I gave up cable a while back, and if I catch it on the internet, then I will. But yeah, I will watch it, because I like watching that. As far as we're talking about who's interviewing them. I think Maddow is going to be a lean, and she'll probably favor one over the other. But as far as Lester Holt and the other dude that does the talk show in the morning, they've been around for a while. I think that they probably have better questions. Susanna Guthrie, I don't know. I think she has a lean.
Yeah. So. Well, let me ask you this. Of the candidates, okay, for example, what do you expect, or let me say, what do you want to hear from them, and what do you expect to hear from them? Let's just deal with the top candidates, okay? What do you expect to hear from Joe Biden? What would you like to hear from Joe Biden?
Oh, goodness gracious. I would like for him to man up to some of the things he did as a senator and actually say, yes, this is my record, and not flip-flop. The thing that I admire the most in anyone is consistency. However, I've been known to flip-flop myself, but as far as him, you've been around, man, and you were around during the 60s, and yes, this stuff happened, but this is today, and this is the way I want to do it. I don't want to hear Obama coming out of Joe Biden's mouth.
Yeah.
I want Joe Biden to come out of Joe Biden's mouth. You know what I mean?
Okay, otherwise, let me put it this way. Are you saying to me you don't want him to run on the Obama record or run as a third term of Obama? You want him to say, what are you going to do as Joe Biden? Be Joe Biden, be
Correct.
Joe man.
Correct. Be Joe Biden. Yeah. I would love for Joe Biden to be Joe Biden. When he was a senator, I thought he was a decent senator, actually, and I know that that's not a popular view, but I thought he was pretty decent. I mean, he said what he said and meant what he said,
Yeah.
You got to respect that.
Okay, now let's think. You made the point with Elizabeth Warren. She's going to be, you're getting the feeling she's going to be the media anointed one, or at least one of them. What do you expect out of her? What's your view? When you think of Elizabeth Warren, what's your first thoughts?
Oh God, really? Do you want me to say it on the radio?
Well,
she's a politician. How about that? Can I just say that? It's kind of like an ambulance station lawyer, It's like the used car salesman. She's going to tell you what she needs to tell you to sell herself. She's going to fake drink a beer and run around in gay pride colors or whatever. She's going to do what she needs to do to get elected. She's a politician.
So you don't view her as a genuine populist or left wing, whatever it is she is. You view her as somebody who's smart enough to do this because this is the way to win. And
yes, sir. I do believe she's out to win. Yes, sir. Yeah. That would be the more appropriate sentiment there. Yeah, she'll do anything, say anything.
Yeah. Now, there's the idea of the Pocahontas, or the fact that she, declared herself a Native American while, getting tenure and going through. Does that bother you? Is that something that that would bother you, or is that something that's bridge under the water?
I don't care about it at all. She did it. She got it. She got through with it. That's something that she's going to have to deal with, and she's going to have to deal with the Cherokee Nation with, because that's her path, and that's what she's done. She's got to deal with that. Personally, for me, I ain't got time to worry about what Elizabeth Warren did in the past as far as faking this or faking that. Like I said, she's a politician. She'll do anything, and that there proves that she will do anything to get it. She did that to get into Harvard. Come on,
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that sounds okay. I'll tell you what. I think first of all, I want to thank you very much, Pam, for being on the air with us and sharing your opinion, because because you are, like I say, an independent mind on these issues, as you told me once, and then you tell me once that in 1976 you voted for Jimmy Carter. So.
Oh yes, sir. I sure did. I'm proud of it. He's the only person that allowed Indians to pray. So hey, go for it.
All right, I'll tell you what, we're gonna stop it right there. This is Tom Donaldson, Donaldson Files with Coco Konski on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, and we're going to be turning very quickly over to the Dr. Larry Show in just a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds here. Dr. Larry is going to have as his guest Chris Kettner. So, yeah, so as soon as I can get up here, yeah, so tell you what I'll do here I'm not on the air, am I? Yeah, so this is the Dr.
The Batchelor Pad Radio Network, and I'm Dr. Larry Fedewa. I'm your host for the next hour, and tonight we're going to be talking about fathers. Are fathers obsolete, or who needs a father? So my opening statement is that after a generation of free love, unlimited abortions, increases in divorce, single mothers, unwed mothers, single-sex parents, and fatherless children, it may be a good idea to revisit the concept of fatherhood. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, a father is first of all a man, not a woman. A father is a man who is committed to his wife and who is willing to proclaim publicly and legally that commitment through a marriage ceremony. A father is a man who has publicly and legally committed to support any children who may be born of that union. And finally, a father is a man who has undertaken to maintain these commitments for life through good times and hard times until death do us part. There is also another definition of father, which is taken in the biological sense as the donor of the sperm which results in a birth, whether in or outside the marriage bond or any other level of commitment. In our current world, however, a biological father is an almost useless definition of the term father. That leaves the traditional meaning of the term as described above. It also leaves the definition as increasingly rare in our experience, or so the movies and news would have it. The popular culture has elevated the roles and rights of women at the expense of men in general, and fathers in particular. But what difference does it make? Who needs fathers? Before we answer that question, it is instructive to think about why such a question should arise in the first place. The answer has to do with the sexual revolution in the 1960s. That is when oral contraceptives came into common use in the Western world. This development coincided with the recognition that children are no longer an economic bonus in urban America as they had been in rural America. A large farm family had a financial advantage as the children grew up because of lower labor costs. A large family of city dwellers, however, has higher costs of housing, food, health care, and education, and no corresponding increase in income. The ability to limit pregnancies comes easily. The ability to limit pregnancies easily was thus a simple and straightforward answer to this dilemma. But along with these family planning conveniences came another result: the increased opportunities for promiscuity. Until the introduction of oral contraceptives, the customary and intuitive role of women had been as guardians against out-of-wedlock liaisons. Suddenly, all restrictions became unnecessary if the female contraceptives were employed. Sexual activities came to be viewed as a form of entertainment. Adverse results in the form of pregnancies were easily prevented by prescriptions or eliminated by legal abortions. In this more promiscuous environment, other social movements caught fire. Women began to realize that their social roles were no longer restricted for the family rearing years by unwanted pregnancies, and women's rights to independence and careers outside the home had accelerated during World War II when women began doing jobs previously reserved for men. Remember Rosie the Riveter. These trends took on a new life and evolved into a major economic force as an extension of the available workforce. Another consequence was a massive rethinking of the role of men in society. The first responses in many cases were nearly grotesque, men taking advantage of every opportunity of the sudden lifting of female safeguards against illicit sex. Divorce rates soared, marriage rates began to decline, and so did pregnancies and birth rates. As the sexual revolution matured, women demanded an expanded role for men in marriage, for example, sharing housekeeping and baby care, as well as less control over family matters, since they were often major financial contributors. There were no rules. Traditional rules didn't really apply, and there was little consensus regarding new rules. In the meantime, women rediscovered the joys of motherhood, but increasingly without fathers present. So who needs fathers? Not today's modern women, say the feminists. What are the results of this change in the winds of family life? Well, for one thing, a lot of fatherless children, and a lot of overstressed and overworked women, and a lot of lonely and distressed men. This new system doesn't seem to be working. One place to start rebuilding a healthy family life would be with men. Perpetual adolescence may be fun and exciting, but it is no way to live your whole life. Men need children as much as women do. Men need to have someone to care for, to live for, and if necessary, to die for. Fathers are not like the Batchelor stallions who live on the periphery of the herd waiting for a chance to mate with a wayward mare. We all need our own little band, our family. If circumstances, physical or otherwise, make fathering our own family impossible, some substitute should be found. But whatever its form, that fathering nevertheless has its own requirements. A father must be a good husband. That means willing to support his wife emotionally as well as financially to the best of his ability as long as they both shall live. Some men duck out of marriage at the worst possible times, the times of greatest loss, whether sickness, finances, or even death of a child. No family can build a successful life on such a shaky foundation. A father must be a good father, patient with his children, willing to sacrifice for them, to love them, and to help them face their own lives as they consider each test along the way. Who needs a father? Your son needs a father to show him how to live, how to love, how to have fun, and how to die. Your daughter needs to know that there are good men in the world. Men make up half of the world's population. Your daughter needs to know how to tell the good ones from the bad ones. All her life she will compare the men she knows with the father who raised her. You are that father. She needs you. You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you to join us on the Donaldson Files with your hosts Tom Donaldson and Coco Constantly. Join them and listen to all the topics and discussions on Mondays on WCOMFM.org or on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at blogtalkradio.com/LA Batchelor. It is politics that you've never heard before on the Donaldson Files. And if you miss any part of their broadcast, you can listen to the podcast at our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com.
listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad
I'm right here.
Network. And we'd like to welcome our guest for the evening, Chris Kettner. And Chris is also a father. Tonight he is a political commentator, as I am for the most part. And we're both stepping out of our normal wheelhouse here a little bit tonight to be talking about fatherhood. But it seemed to me to be a subject that is kind of ignored too often. But Chris, what you have children, and can you want to tell us a little bit about them?
Well, first thing I want to do is tell you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. First thing I want to do was tell you great monologue number one.
Well, thank you.
That first paragraph or so, I was wondering where you were going as far as the political correctness, which I don't care about anyway. When you said marriage is a man, I mean fatherhood is a man. However, I do have children myself. Yes, I do. You want me to tell you a little bit about them?
Yeah, well, that'd be a good place to establish for the audience that you know what you're talking about.
Okay. I have twin girls, magnificently beautiful, sweet, daddy's girls, and very smart, sharp. They've always been the apples of my eye.
My son has twin girls. That is a special challenge, isn't it?
Well, you know what I found out at an early age, that the girls, if you have twins, there's always one of them in a good mood. So you're always going to get a hug.
Well, that's a good sign.
Let's talk a little. Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so go ahead and talk about your reaction to the monologue.
I thought it was phenomenal. I think that while you were talking, I was looking up feminism, and I wanted to see what percentage of the population of women consider themselves feminists. And it varies from country to country. Germany's like about 8%, but there are countries like Sweden that have as many as 40%. And, the evolution that you gave from fatherhood, what it's supposed to be and what's happened in our country is spot on. The only thing that was left out, in my opinion, is that the government has encouraged it every step of the way. Every step of the way. And not only have they encouraged it, they financed it, and they promoted it. I don't mean fatherhood. I mean the single mother living in the home. They have continued to promote that by their deeds. And you want me to go into that part?
Yeah. Why don't you just explain that a little bit more?
Well, in today's society, through benefits or whatever, so subsidies, if you will, a woman gets a certain amount of money per child, basically, for raising their children. They get, welfare or whatever. There's different things, but more for food stamps, more for this, more for that, to the point it's so out of whack that the woman looks at it, and by the third or fourth child, they're looking at this and they're saying, my gosh, I'm making more money from the government paying me for each one of these children. If my husband comes back, I'm going to lose this much money per month. And it's not worth it for them. They were split up for a reason to begin with. It's not worth the fight. It's not, in a marriage, as well as I do, Dr. Larry, that it's a fight. You don't just get a marriage and everything's happy from the day you have the love bliss at the beginning, the lovable bliss at the beginning, and the rest of your life that's the way it goes. It never goes that way. There are trials and tribulations along the way. And you have to stick with it. You have to fight for your marriage. You have to be determined to keep it.
And
the government.
And a lot of men these days are not.
Well, I'm not going to put it just on the men. I'm not going to do that.
No, the women aren't either. But go ahead.
Yeah, I can't just put it on the men. I can't. To me, you hear it's 50-50. I don't believe that either. I believe it's 100%, 100%. Both people have to be all in, all the time, to make the marriage work. My mom and dad were married 72 years. And growing up, I saw the trials and tribulations. I saw where I would look at the dead. They would have never, kids today would never have been able to make it through the things my mom and dad had to make it through. The death of 2 children, just for one.
Oh, my God.
They would never have made it through, and that's a mild one compared to all the other things that happened. I mean, if you can believe that or not. So, but they made it 72 years because that generation, the greatest generation, that's what they were supposed to do when they tied the wedding knot, and they honestly believed it. Where today's kids, it's a throwaway society, and unfortunately, the men and the women don't take it as seriously as they should, I believe.
Well,
wow.
Yeah, I think your case though against the welfare mothers or about the welfare mothers is while there's truth to that, there's also a lot of society that are not in the welfare category. You've got a lot of women these days that are in various professions and occupations that pay well, and I really think that well, I don't know where to. I start with men because I understand more about men than I do about women, but I agree that there's a laxity on both sides. But I think when you start looking at this, take a look at the abortion emphasis, for example, that's recently come up again, and when you have people that are, I thought when you were talking about government interference, you might be talking about that. When you have children, I mean babies that are born and they're in the arms of the nurse after birth, and then the mother and the doctor decide whether they're going to let that child live or not. I mean that is infanticide. That's murder. And who in the world would advocate such a thing?
The governor of Virginia, number one.
Yeah,
the
governor of Virginia, New York.
Yeah, the governor of Virginia. Well, the entire General Assembly of New York. Don't you remember? They celebrated. They all stood up and clapped for themselves when they passed it. And see, the government has this knack, Dr. Larry, of using these words that the general public doesn't know the meaning of. In other words, if you ask 10 people on the street, which I have done for my show, and you ask them what infanticide means, they don't even know what I'm talking about. But if you look up the definition of infanticide, it is very simple: infant homicide. Yeah. That is Webster's dictionary of the meaning of that word. So the governor is telling us, and he told us, I mean, I'm in Virginia right now, that he sanctions premeditated murder of infants because, remember what he said, we make them feel as comfortable as possible. Then the doctor consults with the woman and they make the decision whether the baby gets to live. Well, first of all, the baby, they wouldn't be making it comfortable if it wasn't alive. So we know it's alive. Now, when you decide in advance that you're going to not, or you are going to kill the baby, and then you decide to end its life, there's nothing but premeditated murder there, and I don't know why they got to dress it up with the word like infanticide.
Well, they don't even use that. They just call it late-term abortion. And but when you stop and think of what kind of morals or values do people have that would advocate such a thing? And then how could you have so many people like for example, you were mentioning the assembly of the General Assembly in New York State. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, that is just so outrageous that it's almost beyond belief. And yet we've got, what is it, 8 states now that have that kind of legislation either pending or passed.
Well, what happens is, Dr. Larry, what happens the way I see it is, look, these people, they have sold a bill of goods starting way back in the late 60s about women's health. They work on framing these issues, being in charge of your own body, your reproductive rights. They frame it so that it's agreeable. For example, the polar bear with climate change. They started indoctrinating the kids on global warming by showing them the polar bear on a block of ice. They didn't say that, by the way, the polar bear can swim 300 miles a day. No problem being on the block of ice. But they made the kids, they put this endearing thing in front of the kids to brainwash them. And then when it was obvious there was no such thing as global warming, they said, well, we got to change the name. They changed it to climate change until they find a name that the public will buy. That's what they do. That's what they're doing. They're selling this crazy ideology.
Yeah, but it's just so grotesque that you would have. I mean, and of course, once you start down that slippery slope, you start looking at euthanasia too. And we now have a couple of states that have legitimized what do they call it, doctor-assisted suicide, and also well, I guess that's what they're talking about right now. But that once they go after the helpless babies, the next target will be the helpless old people.
Right, and you got to figure
helpless sick people.
And I don't know if you're coming up on a break or not.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard the signal there, which is great. Listen, I want to let everybody. It's all right to mention where I'm from.
Let's come back to that.
Okay.
You're on the Dr. Larry Show. You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you to join us on the Donaldson Files with your hosts Tom Donaldson and Coco Constantly. Join them and listen to all the topics and discussions on Mondays on WCOMFM.org or on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at blogtalkradio.com/LA Batchelor. It is politics that you've never heard before on the Donaldson Files. And if you miss any part of their broadcast, you can listen to the podcast at our website, thebachelorpadnetwork.com.
You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network, and we're talking to Chris Kettner of the Stars and Stripes Network. Chris, you were about to make a point.
Yes, I was going to. Before I did that, I was going to mention my name of my show was the Specialist Radio Hour. I'm on from 9 to 12 each 5 days a week on Stars and Stripes Radio Network. Thank you for letting me say that, Larry. But back in the beginning of Roe versus Wade, you had a society that did not have the technology we do today. It was easy to dupe us into really having sympathy for back alley abortions, clothes hangers, and all those things. It was horrifying to the public. We could buy into that rare case. But from Margaret Sanger's days up to the present, it has always been about killing the babies. It's always been about having the perfect race. It has always been about money. Planned Parenthood has been caught many times on video selling body parts. When you say it's sickening, it is sickening because now we have 3D sonograms. We can see So when Alabama or whatever state, I forgot the name of the state right now, came out with the heartbeat law, where it has to, if it hears a heartbeat, that's it. You can't have an abortion. My gosh, okay, if you can't hear a heartbeat and make a decision, wait a minute, that baby has to live and put it up for adoption, something's wrong with you. I worked for a congressman. I won't mention his name right now, but I had to do his research, and he asked me to research abortion. And I found that like 96.3% of abortions were done for contraceptive purposes.
Yeah.
There's only 3.3% or 3.2% that are done for rape, incest, and the life of the mother.
Well, it came to be popular mainly as a contraceptive, and I think that's still really the main thrust behind the whole thing. I can have a certain amount of sympathy with the idea that we shouldn't really have a system where it's the government that has to decide whether or not we can have an operation or not. But in this situation, I must admit, I was less secure in my opinion on late-term abortions. Early term abortions until we got the sonograms, until we got the evidence of the rapid maturity of the child in the womb.
But here's the doublespeak, Larry. Here's the doublespeak. This is the sick part of it. If you shoot a pregnant woman in California, i.e. Lacey Peterson killed his wife that was pregnant. Remember that case years and years ago? He drowned her. He drowned her in the water out there. He was the fertilizer, Lacey Peterson.
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay, he's charged with 2 murders. Now, how in one breath, if you shoot a pregnant woman, is it 2 murders? But yet you're going to tell me it's not living, so we can abort it anytime we want to.
Yeah.
Either it's alive or it isn't.
Well, I think this is all part of the promiscuity aspect of things, and also the other factor is that when the urban family decides to have, they can in fact decide whether or not to have children now. That didn't used to be that easy a choice. If you had children, you had children, and there really wasn't any legitimate way to plan that, short of some pretty extreme abstinences. But now, this whole thing, I think really, when you come right down to it, it has to do with women wanting, and I think a lot of men agree for the same reason, that they want the sexual freedom to be able to shop around even on short notice for a mate for their convenience. And that, by the way, is another trend that's starting to melt a little bit. I've seen some recent statistics that are showing that there's more interest in lifelong marriage and the more typical, or at least more traditional types of companionship. It's a really difficult situation to try to talk your way or think your way through. But I'd like to get back to the idea that I think that men also have some responsibility for this.
Of course. Men definitely have responsibility. It's 100%. Look, the woman can't have a baby without the man.
Well,
so
yeah.
there's no
as
question.
Got long as they got sperm banks, that may not.
Well,
be
now
the
they got
case.
sperm banks, yes. But I'm saying, I'm speaking in general terms here, just trying to show. Yes, I agree with you 100% that it is both people responsible for. However, if you get me talking about responsibility of men in regards to being a father to the child, then we're going to have a little bit of a different conversation, because to me, it is a responsibility of both parents. Both. Not just the man, not just the woman. They both have to carry their end of the surfboard or their end of the board.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I've also seen really right in suburbia, in friends or acquaintances that we've had over the years, of men that have deserted their wives in very perilous situations. One wife got serious, really death diagnosis of cancer, and her husband made some kind of an excuse and got into a quickie divorce because he just didn't want to hang around and watch her suffer. Another one. The father, the baby died, and they had a child that got killed in an accident, and she was driving, and then we could go on and on with a whole series of cases like this.
Yes, but Dr. Larry, come on now, you're talking about the exceptions to the rule.
I don't think so.
You think it's a normal occurrence that a child dies in the family and the husband leaves?
I think there are a lot of men whose view of their responsibilities is quite shallow.
I don't disagree with that. I was just talking about the examples that you were given. The wife, the mate's got cancer.
Yeah.
A child. Look, when a woman is dying of cancer, that is a traumatic experience for those two as a couple. When you lose a child, there can't be anything more traumatic than that, probably, for a marriage to stand.
I agree.
That is. Yeah, but that doesn't happen every day to hundreds and thousands of people. That's the exception. What you're trying to talk about, I believe, and what I'm trying to talk about is the shiftless, lazy, deadbeat dad. Maybe that's what we're trying to get to.
At least morally. A lot of these guys are heavy-duty executives or very successful in their business life, but pretty darn shiftless, as you put it, in terms of their personal life. Well, this is all kind of a sociological discussion here that is based a lot on our own opinions and some proof, but there's also a lot of other things that are impacting the family these days, and I think I'd like to expand the discussion a little bit to some of those.
Okay.
The first one is education, because it seems to me that the whole idea of government monopoly of public education has shown us that we just can't trust government to do that, like we can't trust them to do anything else. And we're now coming into a situation where families that are dependent upon public education, which is most of us, are really finding that they have a whole different type of ethic relative to sexual ethics and to citizenship ethics that their children are being taught, even though the parents may be very traditional and very moral-abiding people. And that seems to me to be another one of these trends that is against the whole structure of a successful family. Kids that are really getting brainwashed in terms of I mean, an example was the other day I was reading about I think it was a first grade or second grade teacher teaching about what to do about homosexuality and what to do about cross-gendering. This is I think is another case of government just complete overreach. And we allowed it.
We allowed it when Brown versus the Board of Education in the 60s. That is basically the beginning of the takeover of our public school system. That is really the beginning of socialism in this country, right. where the government has taken over, and the objective of this, and it has been a 50-some-year plan, maybe a 60-year plan, is to indoctrinate our children and get the children to. They've taken God out of the schools. They've taken the Pledge of Allegiance out of a lot of the schools. They've taken the parents out of the schools. They feed the kids.
Hold that thought, and let's step aside for a second. You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
Hey, this is L.A. Batchelor reminding you, if you're looking for real discussion on sports, politics, religion, and other topics, you need to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern at WCOMFM.org, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/LA-Batchelor, and on Thursdays at the same web address. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can email us with your requests, your comments, your concerns, anything you want at our email address at LABatchelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Pad Nation, Instagram, and of course, if you miss any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to thebachelorpadnetwork.com and listen and enjoy the Bachelor Pad.
This is the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. We're talking to Chris Kettner, who's also a radio talk show host, and he's on every day at the
9 to 12.
Stars and
9 to
Stripes.
12, the Specialist Radio Hour on Stars and Stripes Radio Network.
Yes, sir. And I guess I'm going to be on that sometime soon too, right?
I think you're going to be on it. I think you're going to be on it the day after tomorrow. Well, look, we have a lot of fun talking about these subjects. You know what I'm saying? We try to do our best to maybe pass on some of the experiences in our life to people that are listening, and we appreciate their listenership, and hopefully we do a good enough job presenting it.
Well, you were starting to talk about the whole kind of I would call it the conspiracy theory of public education. During some of that period that you were talking about, I was actually in education. My first career was as a high school teacher, and then I became a college professor, and then a college president. And then I went straight, but I got into the computer business. But nevertheless, I don't agree with the whole idea of a conspiracy. I think that there was just a kind of a gradual evolution.
Dr. Larry, you got to let me defend my statement here. Not once did I mention a conspiracy theory. What I said was it was the beginning of socialism. It was the first thing that was really socialized in our country. It's a perfect picture for them to see what socialized everything else would be. That's all I'm saying. I honestly think that the people used the Board of Education versus Brown as a way to try to take care of racism, racist discrimination. I believe that with all my heart. However, once the government got involved, it's like the doomsday scenario. No conspiracy, just fact. Name me one thing that the government is in charge of that works.
Well, it's a wonder we won any wars, I can tell you that.
Well, if you notice, we haven't won a war, technically,
in a long time.
Since World War II.
Yeah, right.
Since World War II, we have not won a war. And you know why we haven't won a war, Doc? This is my opinion. In World War II, the nation, the people, the Congress voted and declared war on the Germans and all of these people, Japanese, whatever. The point is, the Korean War, that was not declared a war.
Right.
Vietnam was a conflict. And because we had the draft during those period of times, which is a whole other subject for another show, we didn't have a unanimous consensus of all the people behind us. So we have gotten a carte blanche thing where we can go into these countries, fight these people, and I'm a vet myself, so this is no slur on the military. I love our military with all my heart. It's just that we haven't been able to win because we don't have 100% of consensus. Don't you remember, I don't know if you're old enough, and I'm not old enough, but my father has told me, and I'm sure your father has told you, the women were working just as hard back home for the outcome of that war as the men were that were fighting almost. They were sending packages. It was an entire nation effort.
Yeah, Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah, since that time, we've been a divided nation, and basically it started in Vietnam, but really if you look at the roots of it, when we didn't go in and win the Korean War and it ended up in a tie, basically we've never won a war since. We've won battles,
right,
but we haven't won a war because we haven't even had a declared war.
Well, they haven't been real clear as to what it was that we were fighting for. We knew we were fighting against as far as the people, but for example, in Korea, the thing that stopped that was that Truman was afraid of the Chinese, and you know that so we stopped.
Correct.
And you know, and even then we had a hard time getting out of there. And this is similar situation in Vietnam. You know, the goals of the war were very, very nebulous to most people. You know, the idea
and half the nation wasn't in favor of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, how can you fight a war as a nation when half of the people in the nation are not consulted about it? And you want them to give up the blood and treasure, and it is blood and treasure of their boys and girls.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, we certainly had a consensus of after 9/11 of going after Afghanistan, but even that it wasn't very clear what it was we were trying to achieve. The idea to stop bin Laden and his crowd I mean, we did that a long time ago, and then we undid it 2 or 3 times. But yeah, I think that in order to get public support, you're going to have a much better public presentation of the reason for why we're going to war. And
you know what I think is
I
upside
agree
down,
with you.
Doc? I'm 100% in your assessment of the fatherhood. I'm 100%. We have to have the breakdown of the family unit in this country has been really the demise of the country. The taking of God out of our schools, the Pledge of Allegiance, that's part of the overall breakdown in the country's fabric, their moral fabric. We used to have the schoolhouses. It took a village to raise a child. Now nobody in the village knows their next door neighbor.
Yeah.
It's a completely different world. in most places. There's so much work that we have to do, so much accountability that we have to start taking into consideration. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I went to Compton's. I went to Watts. I've been into the neighborhoods in the inner cities personally, just to sit in their classroom one day and look at what the kids were seeing.
Oh, I used to teach in one.
Dr. Larry, it's horrifying.
Well, it was horrifying in those days, not so much for for what they were being taught, as it was for the laxity of the teachers, and that in turn is a complicated issue too, because it was really the leadership was just, you know, it was like it was really more like babysitting than it was like trying to teach. And of course the kids went crazy, and they were very hard to discipline, and it was just, and it hasn't gotten any better. Even in our good schools, in our good schools now, it's not so much a matter of babysitting as it is a question of what the content is that they're being taught. It's
I have a liberal young man that was a diehard liberal, and he started dating my daughter. He became a school teacher, and he went in there with his liberal views and liberal ideas, and they put him in a suburban school as a student teacher. The first school that they sent him to as a teacher was in urban part of the city.
Of course.
He quit teaching. He quit teaching and went to law school.
Yeah.
Because he realized that what we're saying is true. And when I was talking about the horrific conditions in the schools, I'm talking about broken windows in the classroom. I'm talking about no paint on the walls. I'm talking about broken doors. I'm talking about the horrific conditions. See, what our country has forgot to do is take care of all of its people. And first, take care of them. I don't care what it costs. Take care of Americans. How can you have 50,000 homeless people in Los Angeles and then still have Planned Parenthood have an office in every single school in the Unified School District of Los Angeles? How can that possibly be? Because we don't care about Americans anymore. We are the forgotten people, using Trump's words. And until we right the ship and start taking... My dad told me one thing, Dr. Larry. I'm sorry to go off on this, but I got upset about it for a second. My dad asked me to go out and cut the grass one day. I said, okay, Dad. I went out there. This is the days when you had the push lawnmower. I'm not talking about the engine. I'm talking about the real push ones. So I go out there and I look at the next door neighbor's grass, and his is taller than mine. So I went back in the house and I said, Dad, why do we need to cut our grass? Theirs is taller than ours next door. He popped me in the back of the head, and he said, boy, you always take care of your own yard and your own business first. Then you worry about what somebody next door is doing. And go out there and cut the grass. And that's what our country's forgotten to do. Worry about our own backyard first. Get our homeless off the street. Get our vets taken care of. Fix our broken school system. And get these kids an education. Make sure it's the best education. Make sure they have jobs.
But the reason behind a lot of the problems in the discipline problems in school, which are really critical, are really more because of the family. You know,
that's correct.
And you're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Network. We're going to step aside for a second here.
Join Barry Barnes for Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Network as he presents NFL news and evaluates players. Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com.
Hello, this is Sandy Eason, the host of Sandy's Secrets. Come and join us, where we will be talking about women's issues of sexuality, sensuality, and self-love. We'll be coming soon, exclusively on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network.
You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. I figure if Sandy can have a show on women's problems, maybe I ought to have a show on men's problems, right?
Hey, we might overload the network with the problems men have.
But your the connection between your comments about the breakdown of the family and the breakdown of the school are really, really evident, and it just gets worse and worse. I took a course a couple of years ago on there's a group that have made school discipline a priority in their they've developed a series of techniques to try to get